Welcome, everyone. We are thrilled to have you to talk this morning about how Bitsight fuels employee wellness and productivity with lifestyle spending accounts. I'm Sean Brown, Strategic Partnerships Lead at Forma, and today we will discover innovative strategies used by Bitsight to successfully scale a flexible employee benefits program for their global workforce of 800. We will hear from representatives of Bitsight, WTW, and Forma as they share their perspectives on what employees want from employer-sponsored benefits, why LSAs and flexibility are critical to their success, and how to launch a successful flexible benefits program that balances employee and employer needs. So we will move pretty quickly into our panel discussion here after brief introductions, and that will be the bulk of our time this morning. We will leave some time at the end for Q&A, but we will also be monitoring the Q&A during the entire session, so please feel free to drop questions into the Q&A box throughout. So before we launch into introductions very quickly, I want to send out a quick poll to gather your level of familiarity with LSAs at this point to help steer our discussion and give the panelists an indication of what potentially could provide the most value. So if you could quickly just indicate your understanding, and we'll use that to better inform our discussion. With that said, I would like to pass it over to Anu and Eric, our team from Bitsight, to introduce themselves and their organization.
Thank you, Sean. I'm really excited to be here. I am responsible for total rewards at Bitsight, and I'm also responsible for HR operations. Been working for Bitsight for over 4 years, and it's been a delightful journey here.
Thank you. My name is Eric Dufog. I'm the Workday People Operations Manager here at Bitsight and work with Anu to support total rewards for our global workforce. I've been with Bitsight for just over 2.5 years and really enjoy working here and providing wonderful benefits to our employees.
Hi, everyone. George Wilson, WTW. I've had the pleasure to work with Anu and Eric in designing their benefit programs for their employees, and they really do a terrific job of providing excellent benefits for their employees globally. Excited today to talk about how they've designed the LSA, which is really a trend in the marketplace that we're seeing, and how they're going to do that moving forward from a wellness perspective as well as a productivity perspective.
Great. And hi, everybody. My name is Ellie Guile. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager here at Forma and have been with Forma for just about 2 years here. I work with the Bitsight team day-to-day as their main day-to-day contact to review the success of their programs, provide any best practices or recommendations, and work with their team day-to-day on those programs that we have set up on Forma. So I'm excited to be here with you all today to discuss the success with Bitsight.
Great, thank you, everyone. And so also want to provide a quick overview of each organization just to set the stage a little bit. So Anu and Eric, if you want to speak briefly about Bitsight.
Yes, sure. We are really in the exciting space of cybersecurity. What Bitsight does is the cyber risk quantification. In layman terms, what it means is we started off offering cybersecurity scores to the customers that we work with. Like as you see on the screen, higher the scores, the better your company is doing in the cyberspace and the tools that you have, the vendors that you work with, and the processes that you have. Over the years, we have partnered with some of the large risk assessment firms that you may be aware of, like Moody's, Glass Lewis, and Equifax. And what we do is we offer cyber ratings and analytics to them that provides them insights on how they can help insurers, enterprises, governments in the risk space. And this is a really exciting market, and there's a lot going on in this market. You constantly hear about cyber risks that are happening across the world. And we work with a variety of companies in different industries, whether it is healthcare or constructions, oil, gas, retail, or government agencies, you name it, we are there. And I'm really happy to share that we are the market leaders in this space.
Great, thank you, Anu. And moving over to WTW and George.
Yeah, thank you. For those of you not familiar with WTW, the merger of Willis and Towers Watson created a large global organization both on the risk side and the, as we call it, the health, wealth, and career side. My segment that I work with Bitsight and Anu and Eric is the health and benefits space. And we really work on organizations anywhere between 100 employees all the way up to hundreds of thousands. But our segment that works with Bitsight is really a structure between 100 and 5,000 employees, and really looking at full service. And everything Anu touched on, you know, where a company is growing not only domestically but globally, they're looking for our resources across the strategy standpoint. And it's great to work with an organization when they're looking to enhance their benefit programs all the time, which Anu and Eric are, and they really do a terrific job. And they're always open to new ideas. And a perfect example of this is the LSA. So.
Great, thanks, George. And then Forma, for those of you who don't know, founded in 2017, is a flexible benefits software that helps companies offer competitive benefits packages while reducing costs and inefficiencies. And we do that by giving employees more choice and flexibility in how they spend their benefit allowances, which serves multiple purposes, primarily, or not primarily, but functionally saving HR professionals countless hours managing and supporting various point solutions. So using Forma, companies can select from a suite of products where we started with lifestyle spending accounts. We now also offer health spending accounts, health reimbursement arrangements, flexible spending accounts, and more. And we use those to design and deliver customized benefits programs all in one single platform. Employees that are on the platform have the choice to use their funds in 3 different ways. They can utilize the Forma Store, which is an integrated and discounted product and service function. They can use the Forma Visa card, and they can also utilize a traditional claim reimbursement function backed by Forma's world-class member support team. We at Forma have helped hundreds of the world's most admired companies, including Stripe, Zoom, Lululemon, and Affirm. And we now offer our services to more than 200 customers and 500,000 members in more than 100 countries. So with that said, I would like to move into our panel discussion to discuss with Bitsight their challenges and their journey to bring on an LSA along with WTW, and Ellie will speak to the Forma side as well. And so I'm going to actually stop sharing as we begin our panel discussion, so that we can see the whole group here. And so I'd like to start off really for Anu and Eric from the Bitsight, side of the equation, with an understanding of the before state, right? So what was your total rewards and benefits program, and what were the strategic goals that you were looking to solve for at that point in time before we got to finding an LSA as a solution?
So I just want to give you a little bit of history of what we had, right? That helps put things in context. So before we started looking at LSA, we were working with our broker, wherein we had an opportunity to buy a certain number of apps as part of the package that we can offer to our employees. So that is the setting that we had. And then pandemic happened. You all probably know the impact of pandemic, and suddenly, like, we had employees working from home, dealing with variety of issues that includes mental health issues, like how they managed work-life balances, and then how they were having variety of challenges that they needed to deal with. And what we noticed is some of the apps that we had tied up with were really not catering to all of those requirements that our employees had. So we started getting feedback that this wasn't enough. We needed to do more. We needed to do more. And that is when we asked our broker, what options do we have in the market that we can use to meet all of the individual needs, or most of our individual needs? And that's how the LSA came into picture.
Great. And so, what were the specific pain points and challenges that you just mentioned, sort of you're trying to solve for, and what ultimately led you to actually take the leap and make the change?
Yeah, so like Anu mentioned, we previously offered a bundle of apps. They were pre-selected apps that were provided by our broker. there was not a lot of flexibility, and it was just a pre-selected list that employees had ability to use throughout the year. And we also did provide an additional gym membership. Again, it was a pre-selected brand, so there was no flexibility around what gym employees had access to. Within the app, like I said, the package, it was pre-selected and there was no ability to customize the needs of the employees. Initially, we thought when we implemented this package, it would be very beneficial for the employees and they would love it. But when we looked at the annual usage and kind of how much people were using these pre-selected apps, it was very low. And it was, concerning to see the money that we were spending with these pre-selected apps and low return from employee usage.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that from the WTW perspective. As New and Eric mentioned, we didn't work with them at that time, and the trend a few years ago was bundling these packages together, which a lot of brokers and consultants were doing. But exactly as they mentioned, it's not one size fits all, and there were individuals that weren't accessing certain tools and resources. So the LSA really allows them to focus on what matters to them and spend the dollars the way that they want. And that's really been a trend that we've seen on that side, for sure.
So I want to do two things here. For the audience, I want to launch another poll here. I promise we won't do this the whole time. This is the second and last poll that we're going to launch. Would like to ask a question around similar to what Anu and Eric described. What are the actual drivers that get you in your position to make a change similar to the situation they were facing? And then while we do that, George, I'd like to hear from you and expand a little bit more specifically around trends that you're seeing in the market and the use case for LSAs and kind of how that meshes with what Bitsight was looking to achieve.
Yeah, and great timing. We just released our 2023 Best Practices Survey, which is probably one of the strongest indicators of what trends are in the marketplace. And for those of you that are interested in getting a copy, we can provide a copy with you. But the interesting part of that survey, it's 457 companies participate, over 73 million employee lives. But the biggest thing to come out of that was obviously employers are struggling with two things mostly. One being cost of healthcare, which continues to grow. And the second thing was really on enabling and helping employees with mental health and wellness, always number 1 and 2. But the interesting part of that survey was if you asked about LSAs probably 2 years ago, it might have been 10% of companies were looking at it, maybe 2 or 3% have implemented. But based on our survey data this year, 45% of employers are considering adding before 2025, which is significant over what we've seen in the past, and also significantly what we're seeing across our
It's really interesting. Ellie, curious to hear from you, working with so many different Forma customers, how, those numbers that George just mentioned and the problems that Bitsight was looking to solve, how do these challenges compare with Forma's customer base overall and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I do think these are pretty common challenges that we see with new customers coming onto Forma and looking to implement a lifestyle spending account. Oftentimes they've had previous programs that maybe covered a few different aspects or were different point solutions, like the different apps that Bitsight was providing before, but that doesn't cover everything that an employee might want or need. They might have a specific gym that they'd like to use instead, and the lifestyle spending account gives them that flexibility to use their funds towards that instead. And so we do see oftentimes people are coming from multiple different solutions that have overall low utilization. And after implementing a lifestyle spending account that's more flexible and more geared towards the different types of options that employees want and are looking for, we see that utilization typically go way up from there.
Thanks, Ellie. And so I see a question here in the chat that I'll answer from the Forma side, and hopefully through this discussion we get to the use case scenario, but the question is, can you define what an LSA is in some use cases? So at a base level, LSA, or lifestyle spending account, is really just a term that the industry has sort of coalesced around that broadly describes a customizable spending account that an employer can use really in, I won't say any way that they choose, but from an employer-sponsored perspective, can set up an account to support employee well-being or any number of categories that are able to be sponsored by the employer, right? So that can include caregiving, fertility, tuition reimbursement. There's a wide array of options that the employers have, and the spending account can be customized to be as broad or as narrow in focus as the employer is looking for. And so the use cases that you'll hear more about here from Bitsight really come down to more and more often what specific challenges the employer is trying to address, and can be everything from physical or mental wellness or the other solutions that we've described previously. So hopefully we'll get to some more, but happy to resurface that question and talk about it more in a little bit. Is it anybody on the panel have anything to add there? No, I nailed it. Great.
Yes.
I was just going to say, Sean, to give like some examples of what we've set up for Bitsight. We have 3 different LSAs set up with Bitsight today, including a wellness program, so that can be used towards physical wellness, mental wellness, whatever that means to you. A location independence stipend for those who are working from home to use towards connectivity or work from home equipment. As well as tuition assistance, like you mentioned. That's a pretty common one that we see too.
Great. Thanks, Ellie. So I want to go back to the Bitsight team here. So we described the challenge and the before state. When you made the decision that you were moving forward, or at least examining new solutions, what specifically did you set out to achieve? And is there a particular metric that you or outcome that you were looking for?
Yeah, I think a few things to highlight, right? One is we had all of this feedback from employees saying, hey, are you giving us gym membership? I don't use this app, but I use another app. Or are you giving us work from home allowance because I'm working remote right now? So we had all of these requirements, so list of things that we were trying to see a platform. We were looking for a platform or an option where we can tick a lot of these and say, yeah, we can offer this, we can do this, we can do this. So that was one. Secondly, we also noticed that our population at Bitsight is pretty diverse. We have 66% millennials working with us, over 10% Gen Zs, who are very tech savvy, and they move between options. They need flexibility. They want to have the opportunity to pay up for something quickly. Like they want the ease of use, right? So can we look at a platform that offers that? So that was the second option. The third option is, without breaking the bank or increasing our cost, can we look at providing all of this? So those were some of the key factors that we looked at. And one more thing I want to highlight is we are a global company, and one of our goals was to offer global benefits that we can localize. And again, is there a platform that can cater to all of this? So, yeah.
Yeah, and so really a question for Anu, Eric, and George as well is, how familiar were you with the LSA landscape prior to getting into this? Because then that leads into the question of what sort of functionality, you mentioned a couple things there in terms of flexibility, but as you got more into understanding the LSA landscape, what was the functionality you started to really pick out as integral to what you wanted to do?
That's a great question. We really weren't aware of the LSA. What we knew is what we're offering is not working with us. So, and then we started asking all of these questions to our brokers and started exploring. That's when we came across this option that really fit the box for us.
Yeah, and I'll just add from the WTW perspective, I think, LSA, the concept has been around for a while, but never really formalized till the pandemic came upon us. And I think when you started seeing employees looking for more flexibility, and keep in mind it is a taxable amount that allows you that flexibility. But we've had clients use their LSA for all things like ski passes, Peloton memberships. So things like that to customize the benefit the way that you want. When you talk to clients about it, and when Anu and Eric started exploring, it really opened up all the flexibility that they were looking for, and really what employees want in that flexibility to use it. The taxability issue really isn't a big issue, just because viewing it as a cash benefit, but it really allows that flexibility to use the dollars the way they want.
So as you got into evaluation phase, what specifically about Forma did you like and led you to choose Forma as a solution over other providers?
Yeah, so we were looking for a platform that offered flexibility to our employees, like we mentioned, giving them the ability to customize how they use the benefit. We also wanted it to be easy for them to access, and then also easy for us, the employer, to administer. At some point, we talked about potentially offering an allowance, but we realized that once we give them an allowance, it's considered net income, and it's hard to change or pivot based on employee needs once you give them that allowance. Forma also gives the employees the option to accumulate the funds. So you have the ability to use the entire stipend that we give them for the entire year to purchase something, at the end of the year if they want to buy a larger item like a Apple Watch or a Peloton bike or something like that. And it also gives them the ability to submit a claim where they can submit that larger purchase in January. As they get more funds throughout the year, the reimbursement goes through. The other thing too that we talked about was if they wanted to purchase flexibility, they can change it month to month. They can also, with the 3 ways to spend, they have access to the online store, the mobile Visa card, where they can go to their local gym and put the Visa card down, so they don't have to worry about it, and just as they have the monthly membership, it easily comes off. And we like the flexibility, buying products, services, and the availability of the platform based on where our employees were located. And so that was why we went with Forma when we went with them.
So I just want to add to that, right? Just yesterday, somebody walked up to our desk and said, hey, how can we do commuter benefits, like commuter reimbursements? We reimburse commuter charges for employees that are coming into office. And they were like, how can you simplify the process, like what you have for wellness or work from home allowance? So what employees do is they have a debit card option on the Forma platform, and they save that debit card option when they're paying gym membership or when they are paying utility bills. So it automatically gets withdrawn from their account, and if the charges are higher, it gets adjusted in the next funding. So there is a lot of flexibility in the tool for an employee to use. And when we log into the tool, we really see what the utilization is, where are employees using it, what is really interesting for employees to use. Do we need to change or add any more categories? So there's a lot of flexibility for us to manage this. And our accounting team, I know like a lot of companies have finance pushing them to manage these things better. Our accounting team is really happy with how these are accounted for and how easy it is for them to pull a report and manage the accounting side of things.
Thank you for that. We have a question in the chat, which I think is a good transition here. I'm going to point it your way first, Ellie, but then curious to hear from the whole group if you have any additions. But Ellie, the question is, we are a global company. In Canada, how would this differ from our current wellness spending account in that it's also taxable?
Yeah, so like Bitsight, we do work with a lot of global companies here at Forma. including Canada especially. A lot of times Canada, UK, Europe, there's lots of countries that our customers have a presence in. And what's nice about setting up the lifestyle spending accounts on Forma is you don't need a separate program per country necessarily. For example, for Bitsight, we have all of their global countries set up on one wellness spending account, one location independence spending account. And so you're able to set up the different funding rules in each country's local currency under that same program, where you're giving them an equivalent eligibility list, equivalent amounts in each country's local currency. So every country has an equal experience. They're getting the same benefit, just in their own currency in their own country, and then can use that on the different merchants and vendors that they have available to them in that country. In the US, you might be looking at different apps or different gym memberships or daycares that you might be looking at in Canada. And so each employee can pick and choose what they want to use that spending account towards, depending on where they're at. Yeah.
Okay, so let's transition here to the solution. So Anu, Eric, talk us through the details of the program that you ultimately set up. How much, what are your accounts? How much is in each account? What are they for? How are they funded? Just walk us through what Bitsight has now.
Yep, so we offer 3 different programs on the platform: a wellness stipend, which is $50 per month, a work from home stipend or location independence stipend, which is $50 per month, and then tuition reimbursement. We initially funded the program yearly, and reimbursement reports were generated by our accounting team and managed thereafter. So it's a quarterly or a monthly amount that gets allocated quarterly, and employees have the ability to use those funds throughout the year. And the available categories and options, Forma recommendations, we can tweak them. We can look at the usage, monthly, quarterly, yearly, tweak different categories as needed to improve the employee experience and make sure they have what they need within the different buckets as well.
And how did you figure out that that's what you wanted to set up?
So looking at what our current situation was with the wellness bundle, we were looking to solve that. And so that's why we started with the wellness bucket first. Then from there, we also were looking at tuition reimbursement. It would be great to have that be administered by someone other than on our HR teams. We were looking at implementing that to help ease the experience on the administrative side. So we implemented that. And then in the second year, the work from home stipend, employees were really asking, I'm working from home, I have expenses with my electricity, my internet bills, and so we were able to implement that in the second year to really cater to employee feedback and looking to ways to improve the employee experience in our benefit programs that we have here.
Got it. Thank you. So George, relative to what you're seeing in the market and the excellent survey data that you now have, how is this offering comparing, and what are you seeing?
Yeah, it's spot on. I was just looking at our data. So most employers look to fund anywhere between $563, our data show up to $1,000. So right in that range. Anu and Eric at Bitsight have kind of put some parameters on wellness, tuition reimbursement, transportation. But a lot of our clients will just give a flat dollar amount, whether it's quarterly, semi-annual, or annually. And it can be used across a wide variety of things, but that's really the norm. We do have some clients in financial services that have even looked to go a little higher, but I think the median is between that 500 and 1,000, which is a good number and something that employees really value.
I'm going to ask a question here about funding. So in terms of how we're using this benefit and how we're determining funding amounts, Can you talk me through, I'm sure it wasn't easy, or maybe it was, but I'm going to assume it wasn't very easy to just go ahead and grab the budget for this. So talk me through how you made your funding determinations and then how you were able to kind of make it happen internally.
Sure. Firstly, we had what we were spending before, right? Like, this is the X amount that we were spending. Like, what does it mean for us to offer all of this on this platform? So that was one criteria. The second one is we always look at benchmark studies. We are always asking George and team, what is the market saying? What's the technology market saying? What's the technology market in our area telling us? Do you have more drill down data into the cybersecurity companies? So like George mentioned, we had that data on hand. Of course, there was a lot of debate, I would say, for over 6 months before we did this to say, is this good enough money or do we need to do more? So finally, we settled at $50 a month. What was very surprising to me is we had so much debate about funding, whether it's enough, not enough, or is it enough for this region versus another region. But what mattered was that inclusive benefit that we gave. At the end of the day, no one questioned the amount. In fact, at some point of time, we were looking at a higher amount, and then we were disappointed that we settled at this because of the funding and finance approving the amount. But none of that mattered. What mattered was, now I have a benefit that I can use for what I need, and it is so easy to use. I can just swipe a card and make it available on my various accounts. That's all employee cared for. We were delighted with that. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Anu's in a tough spot because technology space, as most people know, offer very rich benefits, and it seems like to be competitive. And if you look at the tight labor market today, technology space is at the forefront. But if you look at other industries as well, we do a lot of work in hospitality, which is a very tight labor market and trying to find people today. So they've actually started using the LSAs for the challenges across hospitality workers. So it became an attraction and retention tool for many of our hospitality clients. Traditional industries that you wouldn't see offering a benefit like this to attract employees.
Yeah, it makes sense. George, would you say, across those industries, are you seeing more, finding new budget dollars for this, or is it more of the reallocating potentially existing, wellness budgets, or even trying to find it in other areas that they're repurposing for the LSA?
Yeah, great question. I think it's finding budget money for it, because when you look across, even what we're seeing with healthcare increases this year, we're seeing a trend that, employers really aren't passing it along to employees because they're stretched based on dollars today. And when you look at some of those salary increases, healthcare costs kind of wipe away that. So this year we're seeing them, even with the hefty increases, our average is 6.5%, which is significant this year on the average. We're seeing employers kind of hold the line on what they're passing on to their employees. And then conversely to that, finding some budget dollars for things like the LSA or other benefits, really to help employees that are really struggling today based on inflation.
Yeah, it makes sense. So let's use that as our pivot point to what's happening now and look at the results of these programs that we've set up, or that Bitsight has set up. So actually, let me go to Ellie first, because she has the exact data, but then we'll open it up after that. But Ellie, how's this performing?
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Yeah, definitely have seen success with the Bitsight programs that have been set up on Forma. Like we've mentioned, there are 3 different spending accounts that Bitsight has set up: that wellness, location independence, tuition assistance. Across those, in the first year, we saw over 80% of employees utilize those benefits. So much higher than what Bitsight was seeing before with the apps that they were providing. Majority of employees were logging on to Forma and utilizing those funds, either by submitting a claim or making a purchase through the store or the card utilization. So great to see over 80% in the first year. After the first year is when they then added on that location independence wallet as well. And we've seen really high utilization of that so far this year too, over 1,000 claims submitted so far this year. So really great to see that Bitsight employees are using the benefits and enjoying the benefits and having a good experience there.
So Bitsight team, what do you think? How's it doing?
I will not throw all the numbers because Ellie covered that. But I just want to say that the most shout outs we receive or positive feedback we receive on all of the benefits offerings that we give is the LSA offerings. Like I said, just yesterday, somebody walked by and said, oh my God, this is an amazing benefit. Like we receive a lot of positive emails. So we are really happy that this is working out for us. And George will vouch for what I'm going to say is that we really offer attractive benefits across, we're very competitive. We get a lot of positive feedback on other benefits, but this is the one that gets most positive feedback.
Yeah, and the Bitsighters are vocal about their benefits as well. So when they like something, they definitely state it, and when they don't, they're going to let you know as well. So
yes.
And benefits have gotten complicated. So when you offer something that's easy to use, flexible, I think that's that's a home run.
Yeah. So a follow up to that probably maybe I should have asked about beforehand, but is around this high engagement level and how successful the program has been. Tell me about your employee communication strategy for when, once you implemented the solution. Did you do anything there, or what did you do, and how did that work?
I think initially it was through open enrollment because that's the first time we introduced it, right? We introduced it during open enrollment. We do talk about it in various webinars or other, benefits highlights we do across the company. We recently introduced a wellness newsletter, so we'll make an attempt to communicate there as well. But most of it has been through word of mouth. Interestingly, like I said, one individual will talk about, hey, did you do this reimbursement, or did you hear about it? Someone else will then ask about it. So that's how it's been successful for us. Is there anything else you want to add, Eric?
Yeah, and also during onboarding too. So from when a new employee joins, we'll go over the form of benefit, let them know what the flexibility is within the platform, and also give them the options that they have to use the benefit. And employees are very excited during that session to kind of see the platform, see how easy it is to use, and then also utilize the benefit as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Eric's being modest. They do a terrific job of onboarding for sure. And in walking them through all their benefits, they do a terrific job.
Does that dig in a little bit more? Does that take the form, in onboarding and otherwise? What are the mediums that you're using for those communications? I mean, I know there's a heavy word of mouth, which is pretty typical for us here at Forma. It's a popular benefit, so we know that. But in terms of getting those initial communications out, what form does that take for you?
Yeah, so we have a weekly benefits orientation. So it's usually a few days after the employees start, where we go through all of their benefits, all of the documents and things that they need for their enrollment, how to sign up for their benefits, and then all the links out to the different providers and things like that. We also have communication materials that we send to them after the session, so they can look into it further. Depending on what the audience is, there might be some people that want to learn more about the health benefits, or they might want to learn more about these accounts. So we send out communications that are provided to help them understand the benefit, how to use them, and kind of dig into what they want to use within our benefits programs as well.
Thank you. I have a question. We have a little bit of time left before I want to move to Q&A with the group. I have a question sort of looking forward, but anything else from any of the panelists to add here?
Like the way it works in US is amazing. Like, similarly, it's also working out very well globally.
And also with the options to, submit your claims and get reimbursed, you have the ability to use your, personal credit card, get the points, and then get reimbursed as well. And then the other thing I just want to highlight is with the online store. It's a great platform and the discounts are available, but some challenges that we do see is the availability of vendors in more rural areas of the US, or, in our international locations, there's less availability of vendors and things like that. And that's one of the challenges that we see, but, Forma offers the wonderful solution to have the reimbursements done for the employees, so they still are able to go to the vendors they want to use.
Yeah, and I would just echo that challenge of all our clients who are multinational, with big presence in the U.S. and smaller accounts in different countries throughout the world. It's a challenge to bring it all under one umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely a common issue that comes up, is that there are certain requirements in each country that companies are trying to comply with and work with. And so how can we set up these programs as one unified program while still complying with each of those different requirements in each of those countries? I know for Bitsight, we've been able to help with a few of those items, like offering vision expenses for certain countries where that's required. We've added that to the current wellness program that Bitsight has set up, but there are lots of different country requirements that come up. And so how can we address all of those? I think it's a challenge that we're always working on together.
Yeah, so that's kind of the question, right? Is for Bitsight, what's next? What does the future state look like for you? What are you thinking about now based on some of those challenges you just mentioned, but the flexibility that the Forma platform provides and how we can work with you to solve challenges? What are you looking forward to in next year and future years?
I think immediately next year, we'll continue to offer what we are offering currently because it's really working out well. We are also looking at commuter reimbursements through Forma. Again, we are looking at taxable, non-taxable components, how that's going to work. But at least in the US, we will be introducing that benefit quick soon. I think the employee experience will be a lot better if we can address some of the challenges that we already discussed. So those are in the horizon for us at this point of time.
Very cool. George, curious, given your knowledge here, where do you see not just Forma, but this space moving, and what are the considerations you see as most critical over the next 1-2 years with these types of benefits?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've had a lot of clients asking about using it in different ways. We had a client just the other day asked us about dependent care and how they might use the benefit that way. We had another client that it only has individuals coming into the office once or twice a week, so they didn't want to really use the traditional pre-tax transportation benefit. So how can, like Bitsight is doing, reimburse through that measure? So I think clients are always asking us different things that are coming up. I think that's going to be as we move into new ways of work and how we're all working in different areas and different means, how we can add some flexibility to that through the LSA. So I think that's how it evolved. Things I probably can't think of that are probably going to come up. It was funny. I was talking to my wife the other night. We were watching a show that had people wearing masks, and it was a retro back to the pandemic. I was like, wow, when a person came to view a house, to go look at a house, had a mask on. I was like, wow, I can't believe we lived through that. So I think where the future goes for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I'll say from my perspective and the conversations that we're having at Forma, more and more I'm seeing what you just described, right? Where we have many organizations that may not have even been global before and are global now. And whereas before we frequently started domestically and would expand to the global space. It's now more common, or not more common, but we are seeing more instances where we're starting specifically to solve a global need, sometimes in as few as 1 or 2 countries for an organization that operates in many more than that. But there, as these challenges arise, as Anu mentioned about trying to bring everything into one roof, if we can solve 1 or 2 challenges for an organization and then over time build it to be a comprehensive solution, that's what's happening for us more and more, because we've expanded so quickly globally and are really able to do some things that are pretty unique in the market. So it leaves a lot of room to solve those challenges for organizations.
Yeah, and that is unique to the marketplace. I mean, a lot of the vendors are only domestic and will not look to go outside, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say flexibility, ease of use, technology would be the key thing to look forward to in the near future. And inclusiveness, like how can we be inclusive with all of this? Because the workforce is getting so much more diverse on a daily basis. So can we cater to all of those diverse needs is what we need to be looking at through and make it easy.
Right. Okay. We have about 10 minutes left here. I'd like to open it up to the group in attendance. If there are any questions you have specifically for the group that they can answer directly. I know one we have that I see is a little bit more general, but the question of how do you see, or what makes an LSA different from other benefits? So how does this complement the traditional medical, dental, vision? And thinking from the funding side with rising healthcare costs, as you described, what's the consideration there for employees in terms of how they're spending their money, and that makes an LSA different compared to their sort of core medical or traditional benefits?
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, I think when you look at everyone focuses on the medical, obviously, for their benefit programs, and all they see is that my benefits keep getting cut, my costs keep getting higher, which is kind of where we're headed, which is unfortunate. We're always looking for solutions there, but I think with the LSA, employers are looking for ways to kind of give back some flexibility, as Anu and Eric said, through wellness stipend, through mental health assistance, and really through other means. Gym memberships are great through the health plan, but you're kind of limited to where you go. It's tough to get reimbursed. This way you can use it the way you want. I talked earlier about the ski passes, which are very popular out west, as well as with clients in the Northeast. I'd say I have one client that I think 75% of their population uses it on ski passes, and that's an allowable expense by that client. So I think that's kind of where, I think employees, when they're going through open enrollment, there's that frustration about understanding all their benefits. This is one that's easy to use and easy to get reimbursed. And I don't know if you want to add anything anew.
Yeah, and I Stephanie, that's a great question, right? So there is very limited flexibility with medical, dental, and vision options, right? Like even when we negotiate plan designs and plans, we have very little flexibility on how we can execute on those. And employees always want more and more and more. So just by carving out a little bit of money aside to show them that flexibility is very helpful, I feel. I also see that some of our employees, like that's probably a challenge. Some of our employees have requested for reimbursement through pharma for some of the denied medical benefits because it didn't get covered. So that's a challenge that we are facing. We just go back and tell them, unfortunately, you can't use this for this. But I feel like where people are looking for options and opportunities to maximize what the company offers, we have flexibility to do this here versus the other side, which is medical, dental, vision.
It kind of makes me want to ask, so George and Anu, you both just brought up employee stories, which is ultimately what this is about. I'm curious if you have any other interesting employee stories that you'd be able to share, kind of returning to the first question from the audience about use cases for an LSA. It's always fun to hear at Forma about, how this is impacting employee lives. So curious if you have any more of those.
I can share one that kind of relates to the question that Stephanie had asked, which we were trying to answer. We have an employee who's extremely frustrated with some of the medical claim issues, right? Like to an extent that it was escalated as, I'm going to quit because this is not working for me. But then close to the end of the year, last year, they saw what Pharma gives them. They were able to buy a Peloton for a discount. They were also able to reimburse, some other expenses they had on wellness. So they really sent a happy, delightful email, which made our year. Like we were dealing with so many frustrating emails, and that one really helped us look at this differently. So that's why I said there is less flexibility and we spend a lot of money on medical, dental, vision. The amount may be like so much smaller here, but I think it is well received. It makes a huge impact on how employees look at what company is doing for them, whether we care for them, whether we are looking at what's important to them.
And I think from a use case as well, giving the employees the ability to choose what they can use the money for, rather than saying you have to pick, your benefits from this list of vendors, has been very positive. And the, feedback we've gotten on the platform and the overall Forma tool has been extraordinarily popular, and they've really enjoyed it and have enjoyed having us enhance the benefits of it as well.
Yeah, and I think the major healthcare carriers can learn from it. I think they're sometimes they're not flexible. I've actually noticed, through social media now, just to call out Cigna, but Cigna's actually started responding to individuals who are putting complaints out there on social media and saying, please IM me directly on your issue. I think that's what people are clamoring for when they're not getting the level of service that they want from their provider. So I'm starting to see that overflow into the healthcare side.
Ellie, you have to have some fun stories.
I mean, I think we've given some good examples. Definitely the Peloton one does come up pretty often, I think, where maybe someone wouldn't think to get themselves a Peloton without having this additional benefit, but now that they have it, they're like, well, I might as well get a Peloton subscription or something like that. Ski passes are also a really common one that we see. But I think what's nice is that you don't have to just use Peloton. Maybe you have a different vendor that you would prefer, or maybe you want to go to like your local Pilates studio instead for your workouts or whatever wellness means to you. So I think those are all really good examples of different creative ways we see people use their wellness and lifestyle spending account dollars.
One last thing I want to say is the offering is just not for employees, right? It's for family as well. Like all of my benefit gets used by my son. So either he's buying a new running shoes, or he wants the massage gun, which is a little more expensive than shoes and other things. And I can use this benefit to pay for it. So my son is very delighted.
I've heard other people say that too, where certain companies will allow like food delivery expenses under their LSA. Like, oh, well, my son uses DoorDash and this goes towards that. So it gives you the option to use DoorDash 1 month, maybe your Peloton the next month, depending on what the needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate everybody's input here. If there aren't any more questions coming in, we do need to wrap this up regardless. And so I would like to thank our panelists, Anu, Eric, George, and Ellie, for their discussion here today. And then to wrap everything up, wanted to call out some upcoming things from the Forma side. We have a live product demo. Make sure not to miss that on October 17th. But also we will link here in the chat. You should be able to look at the Forma LSA guide or comprehensive guide to LSAs, the survey that George mentioned, or at least a summary of it from WTW, which is really fascinating. The link is in there as well. And then at Forma, we're always happy to connect. I'm happy to connect with anybody here and talk through benefits value assessment. And I'm sure any of the panelists would be willing to discuss with you as well if you had more specific questions. But with that said, I want to thank everybody again for their time. Thank you to our panelists for their insight. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Thursday.